am Calene, and one of my passions is children's ministry. And the reason why, before I get into everything, the reason why I even created a curriculum, it's called Flip It, but the reason I created it is because backstory, dun, 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 backstory. So the backstory is that I grew up in church. I went to church every day. They had church twice a week, sometimes 3, if they had 3. But I was at church at least every Wednesday and Sunday. And I went to a private school, which was a Christian private school, had Bible class. That was my schooling and my upbringing. I am not saying that to brag. I am saying that to state this. Why I got in kids ministry is because when I got to be an adult, and I was like, I know all these memory verses, because they were called memory verses back when I was a kid. I don't know what they're called now. Probably some new hip thing, but they were called memory verses. And you would get a prize for learning the memory verse each week, right? And then reciting it. So because I knew memory verses and I went to Bible school and I was a goody two shoes, and I was like, I am a little goody two shoes. I thought that like everything was going to be gravy and that I knew all there was to know about God and things. Pause. This is where the freight train comes in. Okay, it's called reality. And so I'm just trucking along, and then there's like this little freight train of like world and reality, and it's like and it's like, and I'm like, it's fine, it's not, and that's what happened to me. And I was like, oh my goodness, right? Just what happened? And so when real life, real world hit me, all the memory verses in the world didn't help me. All of my goody two shoes upbringing didn't help me. Being the fact that I was in the church and I knew all the things about the Bible and God didn't help me. Because see, you can know about something, but not know something. This is where that pastor girl's going to kick in, and she's going to try not to, okay? Knowing about something and knowing something are 2 different things. So kids ministry for me, let me loop this back around. Backstory's over. Backstory's over. The reason I did kids ministry is because when I had my own kids, I realized I did not want them to experience what I experienced. And taking them to church, I was like, this is the same thing as when I was a kid. What's happening? Why is the same stuff still happening? Same lessons, same stuff, same memory verses that are not memory verses anymore. I don't know what they're called now, but like, I was perplexed. And when I realized that everything was the same, I said, nope. I wish somebody would have told me the truth. I wish someone would have taught me the difference in knowing about something and knowing something. I know about technology. Do not ask me any technical questions about anything, because I could not answer any of them, right? So I know about it. It's over there. I know it's over there somewhere. But knowing it, no, I don't. I wanted my kids to do different. So I created Bible lessons for them at home, and they enjoyed it. And I read the Bible to them, and they enjoyed it the way that I presented the Bible to them. And I said, maybe I've got something here. And happen chance, there was a position open at a church, and I had been volunteering in churches before, but this one was to really just kind of help out. And I helped out, and then it kind of grew quickly into there wasn't enough people, or there weren't other people stepping up. And then I just started having service. And then I was like, well, I have my own lessons. Let's just start teaching that. And I did. And I wanted to teach it differently because I wanted it to be lasting. I wanted the kids to understand God in their world, in their sphere, and I wanted to bring God into their world. I wasn't concerned, which is why I call it Flip It. I wasn't concerned with making sure they know all about God. We need to know that. But I wanted them to know, and I still want them to know, what God created them to be. There's all these facts about God. That's great. That's who God is. But what about me? And what about the kids? I need them to know who God is in their world, in their life, but I need them to understand who God created them to be. So, I will say that this isn't for everyone, right? Like, this whole approach that I take isn't for everyone. I ended up going on to another church. Backstory, we're back into it a little bit. I went into a different church. It was a little bit bigger, and I was a part of the kids ministry team. I wasn't the actual director like I was at the previous church. And I was well known there as well. And what they asked me to do was, hey, can you teach your boss, who was the director, how to do what you do? And I said, excuse me? And they said, can you teach her how to reach kids, how to teach kids, how to engage the way that you do? I said, I'm sorry, that's not how this works. What are you asking me? And it was, teach her to be you. That's not a thing. I cannot teach someone to be me. You cannot teach someone to be you. You can help them work on their own gifts and talents, but because this particular individual did not have was a typical director, had the degrees, had all the paperwork, had none of the knowledge, which is typically what's in there right now. They wanted what I had, but they wanted me to give it to her, to teach it to her so she would become that. And I said, that's not how this works. They did not appreciate that statement. And I said, okay, cool. Well, I don't have to be here. And I chose not to be. Because a lot of really tricky, shifty, unacceptable, shady things started happening after that. I'll just say that. So, getting back to kids ministry, my mission is to represent God to children so they can have their own relationship with God at any age using the gifts and talents that God gave me, the creative gifts and talents. So I was not all tech savvy. I wasn't getting out all the coolest gadgets and the coolest tech for these kids to bring them in. I didn't need that. I just used what I took and taught to my kids, and I presented it in the ministries that I worked for. That's what brought the kids in. Because I would sit on the floor, I'm in their world, and I'm not teaching the same lesson that everyone else is teaching. I'm having an interactive conversation with these kids. I'm interactively wondering, what is their question? What is their curiosity? And I'm playing off of that, but I still have my own lesson plans, which is what brought the kids in, which is why initially that first church grew so much, because I was able to do that. And the other church I worked for, where they wanted me to teach the director how to do what I do, was, you can bring in the people. We're a bigger church, but our kidsmen isn't as big, and we need it to be bigger. And I said, okay, but like, why? And I thought that their goals aligned with mine, but it was, they just want more seats. And I said, more butts in the seats is what they call it. I'm not about that. I want kids actually learning relationship, because that's what will stick. And that is my next point. I teach relationship. Everyone can understand relationship, from the smallest to the oldest. It doesn't matter. They all can understand relationship. So that's what I teach in my kids' curriculum, the ones, my Flip It curriculum that I have up. That's what I teach. And that's what I'm trying to get into other churches, is to understand teaching relationship, not religion, because relationship will last, religion will not. I would know firsthand, because religion did not save me. When that freight train, remember, right? When that happened, my religion didn't save me. It didn't, and it didn't help me, and I got angry for a long time. And then when I finally worked my way out of anger and then had to unlearn and then relearn, I'm like, why doesn't anyone teach this from the beginning? Why as an adult do I have to struggle with this? So that's why I teach kids ministry, and that's why it's such a passion of mine, because my kids are growing up in this world. And I want them to know better than what I knew growing up. I don't want them to be goody two-shoes knowing all the memory verses. Do you have a relationship? Can you even recite a Bible verse? I'm not worried about you reciting a Bible verse. Do you have relationship? Because if you have relationship as a child and you teach that in kidsmen right here and right now in their world, bring God to them at the table to sit with them every day, show God in their everyday world what he looks like, and what God created them to be, who they are, because they want to know who they are, and we're not teaching it. It's just, God is this, God is that. Great. Okay, but me? I'm 8 years old trying to figure this out. I'm 12 years old trying to figure this out. What about me? And it's like, well, God is, God is. Yes, but what am I? What am I? What am I here for? Purpose. Relationship is why that's where I start. That's where I always start, and I stay there. Because that's what will save them. That's what will keep them. If they can develop a relationship with God at such a young age, which is beautiful, then when they get older, they don't deviate from that. And it's not because they read all the Bible verses and they were goody-goody, because let me tell you, I deviated. Heck, yes, I deviated. Far? No, never far. But I still deviated because I was angry. But I had developed a relationship because of things that happened in my life, early adult-ish. And that relationship is what kept me. So when I deviated, it was still a relationship. Because when you have a relationship with someone, you have days where you're good, days where you're not, days where there's more communication, days where there's less communication. And God's always just like, you want to talk to me today? You want to talk to me today? I got some answers for you. I got some answers. And we're always like, nah, I'm good, bro. I'm good. I don't want to talk today. And God's like, you want some answers? Do you want to know? Do you want to know? And we're like, no. He's like, really? And we're like, wait, what? And then we'll talk. But relationship is that kind of conversation. I don't overcomplicate it, which is what happens with adults and what happened with me. I don't want that. And that's why I teach children's ministry very differently. That's why I created Flip It curriculum, to be very different, to reach the child at the level they're at in their world, in their sphere, to create long-lasting relationships. So no matter what happens, if they're walking along and a freight train comes, they just go, and the train goes on by. It doesn't wreck them like it wrecked me. That is my goal. I'm thinking of that part of their life. That's the part, because when everything is good, everything's good. Most people don't even need God because everything is so good, or so seemingly good. But at some point in time, what happens when your boat gets rocked a little bit or a lot, or you just completely get flipped out of that sucker? What happens? That's the relationship I'm trying to teach at the children age, because if they learn that here, how powerful would they be as adults? And then having kids of their own and teaching their kids, like do you understand that this cycle of confusion would stop, and they would be so smart as kids to know how powerful they are as kids? Then that power doesn't leave. It just grows. Like, that's exciting to me. And Kidsman to me is very, very exciting, because watching my kids light up when I read the Bible, how I read it, is exciting, because I never had that. It was just words for me. It was more boring. And some people now like, well, you can't say that. Why? That's literally what it says here. I'm just putting a different tone on it. I'm putting an accent on it. I'm making it more relatable, but I'm not changing the words or the meaning. How I present it is different. Cake is cake. I keep talking about cake. You guys know I like cake. Cake is cake. But cake can always be dressed up a little bit prettier. But at the core, when you eat it, it's still cake, right? And if it tastes like dry stuff and flour, that's gross, right? You'll be like, no, thank you. Doesn't matter how pretty you make it, you just go, no, thank you. And I want to make sure that not only is the presentation good for these children, but that when they take that bite, when they're learning, that it's also good, and they're like, this is great. That's why I do children's ministry. That's why I have in the past. I have other passions, but I'd like to work on both, because the world is changing so much, and kids just need that knowledge and that information, and it's very simple. And I need it to be taught to at least my children, which is why I will take on the task of teaching mine, because that's my job. And anyone else's kids who want to know these things, or any other parent, that's what I'm making this for. That's what I make the curriculum for. It's not for every church. I'm not going to lie. It's not. If you think about it, a lot of churches have the same exact curriculum. Big churches to small churches, because the smaller ones want to compete with the big ones, and they think if the big ones all have the same curriculum, then they should have it. So you can go to a church in Arizona to Washington to like Montana to Florida, right? And all the way up to New Jersey, New York. And you could go to a different church, but your kids be taught the exact same thing, because the lesson plans are the same, and they're not geared towards what I'm trying to do, which is more relationship and basics and simple. So they end up having a better life no matter what goes on. So that's just my little kind of intro, because I'm going to be doing different things as part of this curriculum. So just in case anyone would like information on it, let me know. But if you enjoyed at least learning about this and why I'm going to be doing more videos on this curriculum, let me know. If you think that this is totally nuts, also let me know. I like feedback. It's good information to have. But I'm going to make more on these as well. I have some that I have also where I have blah, blah, blah. Oh my gosh, Calene, say words. I have curriculum that I have actually taught in videos, and kind of shown different projects that I get to do, as well with the lesson plans that I have. And some of them are really great and I've recorded them. So also I'm going to put those out here, as part of the curriculum, but also kind of freebies for you guys as well. So thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed my little rant about kids' church and curriculum and why I do what I do. It's mostly what this was, is why I do what I do, because you're always like, this person's talking about this mess, but like, why? Like, who told them they could talk about that, right? Like, who are you? Now you know who I am. And why I do what I do. So, thank you for watching. And again, Social Awkward Girl comes back because we're not talking about the topic anymore and I don't really know how to say bye. So thank you and stay tuned for the next one. And bye, y'all. Thanks.